All right, so let's get into it today. We're taking a deep dive into a pretty fascinating case.
Yeah.
One that's filled with twists and turns and might just leave you scratching your head a little
Yeah.
about the whole idea of justice.
Hmm.
Basically, we're examining some pretty serious allegations against the chairman of an industrial court's special tribunal.
Right.
Specifically, we're looking at his decisions in a particular case that spanned several years.
Yeah.
And those decisions have really come under fire.
Exactly what makes this case so interesting is we actually have two different perspectives laid out for us.
Okay.
We've got this document called Industrial Court Chairman, a report on injustices,
Right.
and then we have a separate briefing document that dives into analyzing those accusations.
So it's not just like what happened.
Fix,
It's like, how are people interpreting what happened?
Yeah, the interpretation is key here.
To really get to the bottom of these alleged injustices, I think we need to rewind all the way back to the beginning. So this case first landed on the chairman's desk back in May 2015.
Okay.
What happens next? Well, not a whole lot, actually.
You're right. One of the first things the report highlights is this significant delay.
Oh.
Almost 2 years before the first hearing is even scheduled.
Wow.
So we're talking March 2017.
Okay.
These kinds of delays can have a real ripple effect on everyone involved, you know.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Witnesses might become unavailable or, memories fade.
Absolutely.
The financial burden of just having these legal proceedings drag on just grows and grows and grows.
Exactly. And the uncertainty just hangs over everyone.
Right. So March 2017, the first hearing finally takes place.
Okay.
And it's here that we start to see some potential red flags pop up.
The report alleges that the EPA representative at this hearing wasn't prepared to argue the core legal issue at hand.
Oh, wow.
It also points to some procedural errors that weren't corrected during the hearing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so you start to see these cracks appear in the process.
And this is where the chairman's actions and really his words become a focal point in this whole story.
Okay.
The report claims that he actually directed the parties involved to try to just settle things outside of court.
Interesting.
And I'm quoting here, he reportedly said, "I would suggest that Mr. Simons and the bank meet with the EPA. I would suggest that you meet with them and see if you could come up with something."
Wow.
You remember the figure I did ask for was some $11 million,
It's not reflected in any official records.
That's a big deal.
Right.
I mean, if this conversation happened as it's described,
Yeah.
its absence from the record raises serious questions about transparency
Right.
and, the accuracy of the legal documentation itself.
It makes you wonder why such a directive wouldn't be formally noted.
Exactly. It's like a missing piece of the puzzle.
It just adds to this growing sense of unease about how the chairman's handling this case.
Yeah, you start to see a pattern emerge.
Right. So let's fast forward now to May 2018.
Okay.
3 years after this case was first referred.
3 years,
What happens?
the special tribunal led by the chairman dismissed the case,
Okay.
citing a lack of jurisdiction.
So on the surface, it seems like a pretty straightforward decision.
Right. You would think so.
But of course, there's more to it.
There always is, right? The report argues that this initial reason for dismissal, this lack of jurisdiction, was later kind of supplemented with a new argument about a missing branch board.
So the justification seems to shift over time.
It does seem that way.
What is this branch board and why does it become so important later on?
That's a good question. And unfortunately, the transcript doesn't give us a lot of details about what this branch board is or what it does.
Okay.
What we do know is that its absence wasn't initially a factor in the dismissal, but it becomes a key argument later on in the appeals process.
So it almost feels like the chairman's adding this new layer of justification after the fact.
It does give that impression.
Why would that be significant?
Well, introducing a new argument during appeals, it can be perceived as an attempt to kind of bolster a decision that's already been made.
Right.
It raises the question, was that initial reason for dismissal, the lack of jurisdiction, was it not strong enough on its own?
That makes the appeals process even more interesting.
Oh, absolutely. This is where things get really interesting.
So this case eventually makes its way all the way up to the highest court of appeal,
Wow.
the Privy Council.
Okay.
Big deal. And they rule in favor of the officers,
Okay.
stating that the case was wrongly dismissed.
Wow.
And they suggest a new hearing with a new panel if possible.
So that's a pretty big win for the officers.
Right. You would think so.
Yeah, this ruling from the Privy Council is significant. It's not just a procedural victory. It's a direct rebuke of the chairman's previous decision and his handling of the case.
You'd think that this would lead to a change in how the case is handled.
You would think so.
But that's not exactly what happens, is it?
Despite this pretty strong ruling from the Privy Council, the chairman remained in charge of the case.
So even with a higher court essentially saying, hey, take another look at this, he stays on.
This is for the record.
Robert Utley, General Secretary. I'm holding for Mr. Harrison Thompson, who had an emergency that he's unable to attend today.
Thank you, Mr. Utley. And should it please your honor, Sashi Endorsing, and I appear for RBC Royal Bank, party number 2 in these proceedings.
Well, you know why we are here. The Privy Council has ordered that the matter be reheard by a new panel, if possible, but it is not possible because of our laws. So, for the information of both parties, the new forum will be Achon as chairman, His Honor Stroud, and Her Honor Mr. Austin. Right?
Pretty unusual, isn't it?
It's certainly not standard practice. I mean, the whole idea behind having a new panel, especially after a successful appeal, is to ensure impartiality and a fresh perspective.
Right.
The fact that the same chairman stayed in charge, it raises valid concerns about potential bias.
It's a head-scratcher, that's for sure.
Yeah, it really makes you question the fairness of the process.
And during this meeting to set a new hearing date,
the
chairman acknowledged that a new panel wasn't possible because of the law. But he didn't address any of the concerns that had been raised about his handling of the case previously.
Wow.
It almost feels like he's saying, my hands are tied.
Yeah.
But without really grappling with the implications of the Privy Council's ruling or even acknowledging how unusual this whole situation is.
It's like he's sidestepping the issue entirely.
Right, and it leads to this crucial question, can justice truly be served when the person overseeing the entire process seems reluctant to acknowledge potential errors or, even consider different perspectives?
It's possible, but it is not possible.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is, and it's one that we'll continue to unpack as we dive deeper into this case.
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, what's the point of even having an appeal if it doesn't lead to a genuinely new assessment of the case?
Right. It's like you hit the reset button only to find yourself right back at the same level in a video game.
That's a great analogy. I like that. And this case really highlights how important the perception of impartiality is within the judicial system.
Oh, absolutely. If people lose faith in the fairness of the process itself, the whole system crumbles.
Exactly. Without fairness, what do you really have?
Right. So we've talked about the delays, the procedural errors, those shifting justifications, and a chairman who sees, unwavering, to say the least. What I find really striking, though, are the chairman's own words throughout this whole legal saga. Like, his language really reveals a lot about his approach and his mindset.
It's possible, but it is not possible because of our laws.
Yeah, language is so powerful, especially in a legal context.
Oh, absolutely.
The words used by judges, lawyers, even witnesses, they can shape perceptions, influence outcomes.
Right. It's not just what's said, it's how it's said.
Exactly. The tone, the nuance, it all matters.
Okay, so let's go back and revisit some of the chairman's key statements. During that first hearing, back in 2017, remember he urged the parties to just try and settle things on their own.
Right.
That I would suggest that Mr. Simons and the bank meet with the EPA. I would suggest that you meet with them to see if you could come up with something. What stands out to you about his tone there, his choice of words?
Well, there's definitely a sense of informality there, almost like he's trying to mediate rather than adjudicate. His language is more suggestive than directive. He's encouraging a resolution, but outside the formal legal process.
Interesting. And how does that contrast with his statement when he dismissed the case in 2018? He said, having heard senior counsel for the bank and advocate for the association, we rule that we have no jurisdiction in this matter and it is hereby dismissed.
Wow. It's a completely different tone, isn't it?
Right.
Very formal, very decisive and authoritative. He's asserting the court's power and making a very clear ruling.
Yeah, no room for negotiation there.
None whatsoever.
So it's fascinating how his language shifts from this, almost informal mediator to a judge delivering a final verdict.
It is a pretty stark contrast.
And then after the Privy Council ruling, remember what he said when they were setting the date for the new hearing?
Oh, let's see.
He said, well, why we are here, the Privy Council have ordered that the matter be reheard by a new panel if possible, but it is not possible because of our laws.
It's possible, but it is not possible because of our laws.
There's a real lack of ownership in that statement. Yeah. It's like he's acknowledging the Privy Council's decision as this mere formality, a box to be ticked. He's not engaging with the substance of their concerns at all or reflecting on his previous actions.
Almost like he's distancing himself from any responsibility, attributing the situation to, external factors like, oh, it's the law. What can you do?
Precisely. And that brings us right back to that core issue of accountability.
Yeah.
Can a legal system truly be considered just if those in power aren't held accountable for potential errors in judgment or perceived biases?
It's a question that goes way beyond this specific case.
No, absolutely.
This whole deep dive is making me think about the broader challenges of ensuring fairness and impartiality within any legal system.
Yeah, it raises some fundamental questions about how justice is administered.
We've been focusing primarily on the chairman's actions.
Yeah.
But the EPA's role in all of this raises some interesting questions as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Why didn't they object to the chairman remaining on the case after the Privy Council ruling?
That's a good question. It makes you wonder about the dynamics between these institutions, Was there a reluctance to challenge the chairman's authority? Or maybe they just didn't think their concerns would be taken seriously. Or maybe there were other factors at play that we just don't know about.
Right. It's hard to say for sure, but their silence just adds another layer of complexity to this story.
It does. It really does.
It highlights the potential for these power imbalances within the legal system and how those imbalances can really influence outcomes.
And it underscores the importance of individual agency and advocacy,
Right.
Speaking up even when it seems difficult or even futile is crucial for holding those in power accountable and pushing for systemic change.
This deep dive is reminding me that justice isn't just about reaching a verdict. It's about the process itself.
Exactly.
It's about ensuring that every voice is heard, that procedures are followed fairly, and that those in positions of authority are held to the highest standards.
I couldn't agree more. Transparency, accountability, and due process, these are the pillars of a just legal system.
We've uncovered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
From delays and procedural errors to shifting justifications and a chairman who seems resistant to scrutiny.
Yeah.
This case has raised serious concerns about the pursuit of fairness and impartiality.
And what's so compelling are the chairman's own words throughout the process.
Right.
By analyzing his language, we gain a deeper understanding of his mindset, his approach to the case, and the potential implications of his decisions.
It's like a linguistic fingerprint revealing a lot about the person wielding the gavel.
That's a great way to put it.
This case is a stark reminder that the pursuit of justice is ongoing and requires constant vigilance, critical thinking, and a commitment to upholding the principles of fairness and due process.
Absolutely. Every case, every decision, every word spoken within the legal system contributes to shaping our understanding of justice and how it's administered. This case, with all its complexities and controversies, serves as a potent reminder of the importance of that ongoing dialogue and the need for continuous reform and scrutiny.
And it's a reminder that we all have a role to play,
in
ensuring a just legal system.
Absolutely.
Whether it's serving on juries or understanding our rights or holding those in power accountable, we can't just be passive observers.
It takes all of us.
Right. This case has also highlighted how legal battles, they're about more than just laws and precedents, right?
Right.
They involve real people.
Absolutely. Real people with real lives.
And their lives are being impacted by these decisions that are being made, in courtrooms.
Every single day.
This deep dive, it hasn't just been about the legal specifics of one case. It's really been about the human element that's woven through it all.
The human cost of justice.
The officers seeking justice, the EPA's role, and, of course, the chairman.
Yeah, at the center of it all.
And we can't forget about the potential impact on public perception.
Oh, that's huge.
When people see cases like this one, where there are questions about fairness and due process, it erodes trust in the entire system.
It makes people question the legitimacy of the whole thing.
Justice needs to be seen to be done.
Yeah.
If people believe that the system is rigged or biased, it loses its legitimacy.
It loses its power.
So where do we go from here? What are some key takeaways that our listeners can ponder?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is the power of language.
Yeah.
We've seen firsthand how the chairman's words, both in informal settings and in those formal rulings, can shape perceptions and influence outcomes.
Right.
You know, this case really encourages us to pay attention to the language that's used in legal settings and to recognize just how impactful it can be.
It's a reminder that every word spoken, every phrase chosen, carries so much weight within the legal arena.
Oh, absolutely.
Another takeaway, I think, is the importance of scrutinizing those in positions of power.
Holding them accountable.
The chairman's actions and his reluctance to address the concerns that were raised really highlight the need for checks and balances.
Yes, in any system.
We have to hold those in authority accountable for their decisions and demand transparency in the process.
Transparency is key.
And this case also underscores the importance of individual voices.
Oh, absolutely.
The officers who persisted in seeking justice, even when faced with so many setbacks and obstacles.
Yeah, it's inspired.
It really shows the power of resilience and advocacy.
Their determination is remarkable.
Even after years of delays and challenges to have their case heard, it's a testament to the human spirit and the belief in a fair and just system.
It gives me hope.
Well, this deep dive into the allegations against the industrial court chairman has been enlightening, to say the least.
It really has. It's been a fascinating exploration of the complexities of the legal system.
And the importance of upholding the principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability.
We can never lose sight of those.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving for a world where justice truly prevails.
It's possible, but it is not possible because of our laws.